So we get ready. Rafa Matos looking for the start. Mosak it is, though, on the right-hand side in the 28 that has the pole. Matos will quite like the idea of being on the inside at the start of this race, perhaps. And that could be a chance to do a slingshot round the outside and take the lead away from Mosak. We know how aggressive the Brazilian can be. He spent 3 weeks in Brazil in the interim, relaxing to take the time off, but there's no relaxing now as we go racing muscle cars in 2023, and Trans Am is away in TA2, presented by Pirelli. Good start from Rafa Matos. He does do exactly what I expected, is to try to get round the outside. Merrill's going with him, and Conor Mosak will try to defend. He doesn't need to, he's already got the whole shot. And now Austin Green settling into what, second place. So Austin Green is the man who gained the most, as Rafa Matos was defending his position. Conor Mosak going through there, and Rafa Matos losing out to Thomas Merrill, who went round the outside of him. So all change at the front, Rafa losing out.
Well, actually, you say losing out, but you know something, that's a smart move, because it's risk-reward ratio. If you're on the outside, first race, tires are warm. Are they or are they not? Is the guy going to slide out and hit you, knock you off the track? Smart move by Rafa.
Good point, very good point. So 27 laps of grueling heat and muscle car action, the adrenaline flowing for the first race of the season. They had a test here in January, and the conditions actually pretty good as we go on board with Austin Green. And you could see as we watch as the hands on his wheel, also the brake and throttle. The B is the brake, obviously. The green is the T throttle. And then you can see where he is on track and the speed he's doing and the revs he's using. Also the G-force, that round little dot, just how much G-force is being used in these cars.
Now the drivers tell me it's definitely 2 laps, maybe 3s. We got the 34 starting to go slow and goes off track.
Paul.
That looks at turn 7, I would say, by the looks of that.
That's Patrick Paul slowing down there. So we've got 2 retirees already as we go back on board with second place Austin Green. Got some high hopes for this young man. And this is a big weekend for him. Get off to a good start, get the three-dimensional services group where they need to be at the sharp end. And hopefully Mike Skeen will come through. I'm going to keep an eye. I'm going to put you on a couple of watches. And I'm going to keep an eye on the likes of Skeen coming through. Dylan McIvern currently in 8th position. And Thomas Merrill currently in 4th. Already as they come into sunset, the field's starting to spread out as through goes Jack Wood. That's our first glimpse of him in the Chevrolet. And just ahead of him, Connor Zilic getting ahead in that last lap. So everybody filing through. There's Brent Cruz under pressure.
Yeah, under pressure, Slater. Taking the inside line just to do a little defense there. Looks like that was a smart move.
Evan Slater, the man pushing him, another young gun for the Franklin Apparel Chevrolet Camaro. Evan Slater moving to that team. Showtime putting on a really good field of drivers this year. And we've had several changes over the winter. Mike Skeen, it looks as though, I don't think will do a full season as last year because he's got his IMSA and sports car connections, which will bring him back here to Sebring, but he's an accomplished sports car driver now and one of the best hot shoes, one of the best guys you'd want professionally in a car, whatever you're racing. You can bring Mike Skeen in and go, hey, can you try that car out and see if it's any good? Or set it up for me?
Well, you know, and that's not the thing right now. He's coming into a team where there's a lot of information there because he's actually one of the great race car drivers. But you think about Boris Said Jr. that we talked about. He can draw information from guys like him and Rafa, and that's what Boris has to do this weekend. Make sure that he's out there and keeping smooth and learning and drawing the information from the veterans that are on the race team.
Yeah, I think for the young 19-year-old, he's got good experience. He's come through Miatas.
There we go.
He had some
there we go.
Nicely done. And so Rafa Matos makes his move on Thomas Merrill, and the battle is on, part 2, but it's in 2023 now. Merrill, though, is the cool, calm, collected man from Laguna Seca, Salinas, California. He won't be too worried about Rafa getting through. And in fact, he'll probably just watch it for a couple of laps. But there you see on the left-hand side how it stands. Mosak, Green, Matos now in 3rd. Merrill drops to 4th. Cruz, Slater, Goikhberg, the Canadian in 7th place. McIvern in 8th. Zilic 9th. Wood, Andretti. And it's Ata, the youngster, for Nitro coming in 12th position. Said Jr. down in 13th, so holding position really, and keeping an eye on just where the likes of Skeen and a few others pop out. Meyer up to 39 points. He's moved He's moved forward. Josh Sargent, another man you want to talk about, 34th. He's got some good experience coming in here.
You know, it's amazing when I watch the cars coming down that backstretch into 17. Just the heat that rises. You can see all the heat that's coming off the racetrack and off the cars. And guys are looking for opportunities like we're watching right now. Do you dive in or do you wait? Andretti carries the speed into the turn so it doesn't allow the other car to get a dive on the inside. Talked to Andretti. He said, you know something, I think I got a good car underneath me. I think I can move up. But, you know, when you start back and you have all those hot shoes up in front of you, man, the chase is on. And when you have to go and drive that hard, what ends up happening is you use up your tires.
Yeah, just saw a quick glimpse of Andretti there. For those Andretti fans seeing him in the all-blue number 41, he's another man that swapped teams this year. He's working with John Cloud, and in fact, he's doing double duty this weekend. He's also doing TA, replacing Masood, who's got an injured back. So busy weekend for Adam, but he'll be up for it and up to it. I'm sure he'll come and join us in the booth as well. 3 laps gone of the 27. Field starting to spread out, and at the front, Mosak building on that gap. He's just taking it over half a second now over Rafa Matos and Austin Green. Green's still there in second place, and it'll be interesting to see how the three-dimensional services guys work together as a team when they've got a position to do so. Rafa definitely the team leader here in this three-dimensional services with 2 championships under his belt.
And as you ride board here, you can actually see some different lines for some of the drivers. That's always interesting to see who ends up using the curbing, the rumble strips, and maybe just some abuse to the tires. But, you know, we talked, you just said turn lap 3, so I'm thinking that all the drivers told me 2 to 3 laps, tires are at max temp, max pressure right now, certainly because the heat is so high as we talked about before. Now is a time when you need to conserve the car. The other thing, Johnny, is now you know what type of car you have. Okay, is it understeering, is it oversteering, and all the characteristics that's going to happen. That's going to change throughout the day because these guys have 150 pounds of fuel on the car that's going to start to burn off, so the car characteristics are going to change. And so it's up to you to feel that and make sure that you're not actually abusing the tires to try and keep the speed up in the car. It looks like we got a little bit of fender flap going on there on the 86, so that would be interesting.
Junior, yeah. I don't think it's affected too much. By the way, I have found Mike Skeen, 19th position for Skeen, so obviously struggling a little bit with setup. But look at Nathan Hearn. He's just gone past Mike Skeen as though he was standing still. And Nathan Hearn of Australia is flying. He's come right from the back. He had a ride height infringement, was qualified, 3rd yesterday, but had that infringement. That put him to the back of the grid, and he's already up to 19th with a long way to go.
And he told us that yesterday when we visited with him. He said, you come through, you just watch me, a 2-time TA champion down home, and you know something, he understands these cars. He did tell us that the cars back home are a little bit different than what we have here. These cars are a lot more advanced, a lot more horsepower, and he said these cars definitely handle just a little bit different.
Yeah, this is a good battle between Rafa and Merrill again, and they're swapping places lap after lap, the pair of them, as we'd expect them to. The 2 contenders from last year are showing exactly, and I think there's no bad blood here, but I do think that Merrill, the way he won the championship last year and effectively robbed Rafa from that title, probably feels he wants to do it fair and square this year, and every weekend prove that he's quicker than Rafa.
Now, I'm a retired driver, okay? So I didn't rob that title. I earned that title, okay?
Yes, exactly. No, but I just think it was such a surprise when he got out of the car, he didn't even know he won.
Absolutely.
And it was such a mathematical chance that I think now he wants to go out there and go, hey, guys, I wasn't given anything. Let me show you.
Right. Absolutely. But, you know, we always say race wins are always there. You have to be in the hunt for the championship. It's up to these guys to be able to do that. This is a long season, a lot of racing to go on. So the most impressive part about that is that you had guys at the very end of it that were so close and ended up with a tie.
Wait a minute. Ah, that's Merrill. Now, Merrill's lost a place to Cruz. So Merrill's gone backwards. So let's have a look. Yeah, that is Merrill with the trouble sliding through Sunset.
Yep.
And it could be curtains over because Merrill suddenly has gone from hero to zero in a matter of seconds. Cruz has got ahead of him.
He's doing a bit of
not far behind. Goldberg's there. And here is the 26, in trouble already in the early stages of this race. Our current champion, remember. Doesn't matter how you do it, you're still the champion and the target's on your back. He's had an up and down time here as Thomas Merrill. I've seen him streak through from the back of the field. I've seen him take pole position. He has a love-hate relationship with this Sebring circuit. And at the moment, it's not going A-OK. He's down to 5th. Cruz is ahead of him. Slater's behind. Goldberg in the BC All Blue is just behind that. So they are lining up there. You see the light blue and white of the 26 of Merrill. Here comes Slater, and there's Goikberg. The Canadian-Russian going for it. Just behind them is Connor Zilic. Dylan McIvern up to 9th position. Adam Andretti into the top 10. He's just ahead of Jack Wood. And I'm keeping an eye on where Boris Said is. He's down in 13th. And also how Hearn's progress is going. He's still 19th at the moment, chasing down another youngster, Taylor Gray.
Interested to see all the lead cars are now settled into a pace about 209 and change.
Yeah.
So this is where you're going to turn around and see where if they start to wear the tires off and where if they can keep up the speed. Remember, this is a hot day, as I mentioned before. The tires will start to lose their peak just a little bit. And as we talk to some of the drivers, they say the cars understeer. That means they push, I guess, in Trans Am terms, understeer in our single-seater terms. And what ends up happening is that you can abuse the front tire if you're not cautious, and then you've lost the tire for the rest of the race. And then you have a car that will not turn.
Well, you can see from the Cube 3 Nathan Hearn camera just exactly where the Australian is and the traffic ahead of him. So the work he's got to do, he's got Taylor Gray right in front of them, Doug Peterson. Oh, Taylor Gray makes a big mistake right in front of the Aussie, and he'll pounce, I'm sure. And here's another replay of this time the 14 going off into the grass, bit of dirt tracking. But does he get it back together, we wonder? Yes, he does. That's Matt Perron, the man from Washington. And we're now starting to look at Dylan McIvern in the back of your picture there. This battle continuing to rage. As Merrill trying to defend for all his life right now.
Yep. There's a lot of defensive driving going on right now. Anytime you're slow coming out of that previous turn, you look in your mirror right away and you go, I got to cover myself. And that's what's going on right now.
Do you think it's mechanical or what?
Well, you know, it could be the back end of the cars coming around, oversteering already. You know, that's the big thing they say with these cars is that keep the rear tires underneath them. And they do that, and that's why they start the car off with push or understeer, because you don't want to make the rear tires go away. If he's got that problem now, he's going to have a bigger problem as the race progresses.
Well, let's see how he gets out of 7th. Yeah, he just seems to be struggling to keep grip in the rear end, and he's a smooth driver generally. Dylan McIvern at the back of this group, the 2017 winner. So we're going to keep a watchful eye on these 5 cars led by Merrill. And you can see how Cruz has pulled away. So Merrill definitely, just looking at his last lap, struggling somewhat. And
yeah, the leaders are up to like 208s right now, and he's sitting at about 210 the last time around. So he's starting to slow the pack, and that's why he's got that group all behind him.
So Connor Mosak, though, leading the way. The gap has come down between he and Rafa Matos, who's now 2nd, Austin Green 3rd, Greg Cruz 4th, and then it's Zilic, Goikberg, McIvern, and Slater. On board with Adrian Lostowski, a lot of traffic in front of him, and as you can see, the Sebring and that's Marshall's doing their job.
Yeah, and that's a local yellow, and now we have these new Flagtronic boards that are out around this race course, and those are large boards, and we have them actually in some of our F4 and FR racing that we have. So the teams would actually know, and the drivers would know that there's something in that section that they
Tell
have to
me more about
for.
that, because that has been something that's been put in by Tony Perella, at Perella Holdings for all the championships, is that right?
Yes. And it's a big safety item, and it's just like you see in Formula One, also in IndyCar, and Tony's made the investment to do it over all the platforms, and it's based around safety. So not only do you have the flag stands with the flag marshal still there waving the flag, you've got these big electronic boards on the corners that are easy to see. And for a driver, I mean, I could see the next corner down because the board is so illuminated, so it certainly helps you from that point of view. They also have a system inside their car which will actually show them if they're coming up to a yellow area, and after the yellow area, if it's actually gone back to green, the notice will be on your dash that it's actually back to green. You know you can go back to racing. So a great investment by Tony Perella and for all the Speed Tour events, and it's based on safety.
Really no excuse now, and you obviously play race director now and again. No excuse for the drivers. They're going to know. If they're looking out of their cockpit, they should know, and if they're looking at their cockpit, they should be immediately warned of a yellow.
Oh, and the best thing about it is all the cars have onboard cameras like we're watching on right now, and even our F4 and F3 FR cars do. So if a driver comes in and says, I didn't pass under yellow, we go back and watch the camera, and we've got that one sussed out really quickly.
How good is this? Look at this view from Lostowski. He's trying to get past Scott Borchetta, but he's got an eye full of Trans Am right in front of him. He comes alongside the 48. Scott Borchetta struggling a little bit today to get on top of things. He had a great result this time last year, finishing 5th overall. But as you can see, the Hawk is literally hawking around right behind him, trying to get every which way to make a move on him. Where at Sebring is the not safest, but where's the best place to make an overtake?
Well, you know, it's obviously turn 1, turn 7, and turn 17. They're the long end of the long straightaways, but it's also the place that has more confliction of anything else. So you have to go down, make sure you're beside somebody, and you reserved your spot, as I like to say, Johnny. You get in there, get the draft, reserve your spot, so you're actually not going in there trying to make a pass and confrontation, because otherwise you end up rubbing wheels on these things and split a tire, then you're going into the pit lane for a change.
All right, the field spreading right out now with 8 laps gone. They're coming down that back straight towards Sunset. Oh, going wide there, and up the inside goes Borchetta, and losing a spot but coming back. A good battle. Jack Wood then, I think, just outbraked himself into Sunset. He lost a spot there to Borchetta, but out front, Mosak has crossed the line with a 2:07.9, and he's now over a second faster or ahead of Austin Green in second place. Rafa Matos still third, then it's Brent Cruz, and then this battle you're watching between Slater, Merrill, Goitberg, Zilic, McAvern, and Drenny still in 10th place. Lostowski right there. What a battle.
That was a nice move. We saw some passing, but ready to go on. You know, these cars, we're starting to see the speeds come down, Johnny. There's 26 gallons of fuel on these cars. They'll burn 24 and a half, so just over 150 pounds of fuel. So now they're starting to go a little quicker. Cars are a little lighter. And then there's going to be a point where the tires are starting to fall off, and maybe the times will start to plateau. But it's going to be interesting to see if these guys can keep the tires underneath the car. The biggest thing with these things.
Scott, you pointed out something yesterday to me which I thought was really interesting about Sebring, and we see it in the 12 hours all the time. You need to overtake with a massive field like this, but if you go offline at Sebring, we always talk about marbles and debris out there and how slippy it is. But that's normal in any racetrack. That could be as smooth as Kota. But here it's different because the bumps are different as you go offline.
You know, and that's why when you come track like this, and you go any track you go to, and that's what I teach the young drivers in our F4 and FR also, that you're going to find a place that you want to pass all the time. Try that in practice. Don't always drive in the line. Move over in the middle like you were passing somebody so you can understand what kind of racetrack's underneath you. Here, especially at Sebring, because it's so bumpy, and it's not just one turn that might be bumpy or a couple. The whole place is bumpy, which is really a great thing to do for drivers. Learn where you have to be able to make that pass where it's smoother, but more importantly, know the bumps. Don't dive in them inside of the turn. Find the bumps and the wheels lock up.
Oh!
And that's a little bit of what we're talking about right there. The car on the inside couldn't get to the apex because he's probably going over bumps and the car's lurching forward. So that's the issue we talked about.
That was Darren Mock, who was left out to dry a little bit there. Currently in 13th position. Now, interestingly enough, last lap round, Rafa Matos was actually quicker than the leader. So the man running in third is quicker than the leader of the race. Out of the last corner they come then. This titanic battle. Mosak leads it by 1.1. Matos is coming fast though. He's coming closer to Green, his teammate. Austin Green in second place. Then it's Cruz with a clear fourth. Then Slater and Merrill. Great to see so many youngsters up there. Merrill, though, hanging on to 6th place, but only just. Goitberg's got past McAvern, who's up to 8th position. And then we look further back, and I'm just looking at who shouldn't be in that lower section. And also watching Nathan Hearn continue his drive forward. He's up to 15. Now, remember, points are different too as well this year. For those of you tuning in around the world, the new point system, if you remember, it was 35 for a win last year. Now it's 103, going all the way down to 40th position for points, plus there's bonus points for fastest lap and most laps led.
A lot of points in the line, and you know it's interesting. You're talking about what we have right now. I would have thought that we've seen a yellow, because we've had car retirements going on, a lot of battles going on the racetrack, but we've seen a lot of car retirements is coming across our system here. People are retiring with heating problems or gearbox problems or something, but they're getting into pit lane. They're not getting stuck on the racetrack. Hence, we're not getting a yellow.
You know, and I'm also really impressed. We keep talking about these youngsters who are making their way either from karts or from dirt track racing and coming to Trans Am, but holding their own against the likes of Mike Skeen and Rafa Matos and also racing very, very maturely. Boris Said Jr., another good example. Ben Mayer, his first run this weekend. Cruz, we saw it with him last year. Connor Mosack, we know what he can do. And now Nathan Hearn doing the same. Oh, as I say that, he just gets into another car, and just the right time to go on board with Nathan Hearn, because I think he might have turned around the mighty Scott Borchetta. That won't look good.
Well, it's actually interesting to see if he tagged him to go into him and get Borchetta just a little bit loose. It was interesting to watch Nathan because he kept his foot on the gas just to push on through. And I'm sure that the officials will go back and look at that. If I was wearing my race director hat today, I think I would be.
Well, Jack Wood made advantage of it in the number 8. He actually saw that all in front of him, and he's got past. And so now Borchetta has dropped down after that incident. Nathan Hearn coming in. He's going to check the damage. Well, we'll see. Let's see what they do. I wouldn't be
surprised if it's a cut tire.
Could be, yeah. So, real shame for the Australian champion coming into a full season here in the US of A. Been watching from afar and was putting the times out on his Facebook for the Australian fans to tune in. So I hope you are watching, you guys. Welcome to TA2. This is how we do muscle cars in the US of A. So that has changed things in the midfield a little bit. Boris Said Jr. goes up to 11. Mock is now 12. Does it look like? Yeah, I think it could be a... Yeah, it's a puncher, absolutely, from Borchetta. So as they rub tyres and rub fairings, Borchetta basically dropped right down and needs a new wheel on that back right.
Yep, that's for getting tagged on that incident that we saw earlier.
Meanwhile, Hearn is out, and it could be a very similar story for him. They've either done a systems check, but they've sent him back out. But I would have thought the Spike Coolers man, the big machine Spike Coolers man, will have a few words after that one.
Yeah, I think it's right rear on that car, and Nathan's car is probably the left front. That's how that works.
So Connor Mosack still leading the way at the moment by over a second. The gap is 1.2 seconds to this man, number 89. Rafa Matos, though, this is the real story we should be keeping an eye on in third place. You can see visually he's caught up with Green, and the gap is less than a second between the two teammates. Austin Green is the new boy. Rafa Matos is the two-time champion. And surely there'll be no love lost, or at least Rafa won't hesitate in getting by and going after Mosack.
But you know, the experience always pays out. It's very early in the race right now. You can see how bumpy the track is because Matos was going through there, how the car lurches over the bumps. So that's also abuse on the tires. But coming through the section here, you're squeezing the throttle. You don't want to turn around and spin the tires, create more heat in the back tires and take some life out of them. But it does lose just a little bit of traction there.
Let me ask you a question as a racing driver with teammates. When you've got radio communication like this, you've got a four-man team, you're going for a championship, but you're trying to beat Mosack for the win, right? You just want the team to win, right? So what do you say when you're together on track like this? Because you don't want to get into a fight with your teammate.
Well, I'll tell you, right now it's whoever's quickest, and you know, I have to say it looks like Austin Green's probably just a little bit faster at this point in time. But you don't know how conservative, or if he is being conservative, that Rafa is, because like I said, it's a long race. He mentioned that last night. He said just keep the tires underneath the car. So the whole thing is, could he go faster? He might be able to, but he's really thinking as a veteran right now, probably anticipating a yellow somewhere coming along. And as a race car driver, you're sort of banking and making a strategy. Now, if he's running like this and he allows Connor to get a big lead and there's no yellow, then he sits to himself at the end of the day and go, that wasn't a very good strategy.
And you're listening to Scott Goodyear, who knows what he's talking about. Rafa Matos started on stock cars in Brazil, then came as a rookie to Indy Lights, got the Rookie of the Year, then Rookie of the Year in IndyCar, and now he's in Trans Am. So Scott Goodyear, a good man to talk about what this man can do as a former single-seater man himself in IndyCar, of course.
And we saw a car on the right-hand side of 16 coming on the long backstretch there a second ago. It looked like a yellow car, so it'll be interesting to see if it was one of the three-dimensionals or not.
11 of the 27 gone. Rafa Matos has reeled his teammate in. There's your leader. He's maintaining that lead. It's 1.3 seconds, so actually Connor Mosack in some ways controlling this race for SLR M1 race cars in that Ford Mustang. But Austin Green now under pressure. It'll be interesting to see how long these two go at it, or whether Rafa tries to get past him early, or, like you said, does the smart thing. The one thing I've learned about watching Rafa over the last few years is that he's really good with tires, and if he's in a position to save them and then have that last 10-lap sprint, he'll do that.
And all these top 4 guys right now, even though there's space, they're all turning in the mid 208. So the time is just about similar. We've seen some fastest times about the 207 mark. But, we talked a little bit about having the tires sort of fall off just a little bit and the speed coming from the car, from fuel. And from what I'm looking at right now, it looks like we got Austin Green and Rafa Matos starting to catch up to Connor, because that space between first and second looks like it's actually shrunk just a little bit.
By the way, Thomas Merrill down to 9th position, so whatever the problem he had at the rear end of that car has dropped him down to 9th now. He's just ahead of Boris Said Jr., so that'll be interesting to see when those two get together on track. That'll be a good scalp for the young Boris Said if he can make a move past him. Staying with Rafa Matos all over the back of Austin Green. Yeah, I think he's in a waiting mode, personally. I think this is classic Rafa. No need for, as long as the gap doesn't suddenly increase to 2.5 seconds. And also, with this early in the race, Rafa can almost count on the possibility of a yellow flag, so why push too hard?
Well, and this track, we talk about being bumpy, Johnny, but it's also very abusive on brakes. So, I mean, if you're getting too close to the car that's up in front, you're getting all that heat. And now it looks like he's starting to get a little bit closer. Maybe you would look at maybe having a draft coming out of 16. Not close enough, but I think you also have to be cautious that you're not spending too much time too close to the car in front, because you're going to overheat your brakes on this course here. This is about the only circuit the drivers tell me that they really need to be cautious on brakes, making sure you don't overheat them, and it's just because of the speed and the length of the straightaways and the braking zones.
Under the bridge one more time at Sunset they come.
So you saw Rafa's car go through turn 17 there. Maybe not as smooth over the bumps as you would expect to see. This is a new car for him because he's just changed to a new chassis from last year, the M1 chassis. So he's explained that to me just yesterday. And he felt that last year, starting more about the middle of the season onwards, he didn't think that they had the pace to be able to win races. So they've changed chassis manufacturers in a new chassis. Only had 2 days testing in this car before the race here. So it's sort of all new to him. And he'll be learning a lot today that he'll be able to put in the bank for future races and work with the engineers about improving it.
That could be a big change when you change the chassis. I mean, if you're not comfortable right from the get-go, you could be chasing it for a long time, can't you?
Well, you can go out and do a long run and try and simulate a race, but there's nothing like actually being in the race. And so you drive it a little bit different. You move the car around a little bit different. You can see the back end walking out on him just a little bit there. The left rear wheel got into the dirt. So that sort of scenario tells me that he can't get on the throttle as quickly as he probably wants to and get the power down, simply because he doesn't have the grip in the back of the car.
Down to the Bridge Hall corner we go, turn 7, right by the hotel. A tricky one, that one, because you're coming straight up to this left-hander, and then it jinks to the left and the right before heading to the back of the circuit, down the Fangio straight.
See, under braking, he's got the car. He gets in under braking well, but just not getting the acceleration out. A lot of wideness right now onto top of the curbing, too.
Austin Green doing a really accomplished job for a youngster, holding off Rafa and not showing any signs of the pressure that he's under. And he's also keeping Mosak very, very, very honest in terms of his racing. Mosak, in the last 3 or 4 years, has become the full article here in Trans Am. He's literally grown up in front of our eyes. It's great to see. I mentioned at the top of the program, 6 poles he got last year. He was actually very frustrated by mid-season last year because he hadn't converted those poles into wins. And so this year, I know that the amount of racing he's doing in Trans Am, he wants to finish with wins or at least podiums every time.
And you want to do that because, you're trying to move up the ladder. And this, everybody's starting to call the Trans Am Series almost like a finishing school for NASCAR. So all these drivers are here to get experience, to understand the big cars, the heavy cars, the horsepower cars. And you want to make sure that you can actually debut not only when you get to a new series, but any race that you get to, make sure that you're putting on a good show.
One of the things that makes you excited about motorsport, especially like you and me who've been around it a few years, is when you see someone new, someone exciting, and someone about to change the world. And we just saw him there, Brent Cruz. I can't believe, he's 14 now, and he wanted to go single seaters. He's not old enough to do F4. He said, a bummer of a birthday. He joked to us on the pit lane.
Well, it's interesting because I spoke to his stepfather, Matt Langford, probably back in December. They were looking at having him come in and running some F4 cars. And he's actually even tested an F4 car because he loves the single-seater stuff too. But it was interesting. Our first race is here very shortly, and FIA, because we're part of that ladder system, F4, F3, F2, F1, you have to be 15 years of age. He misses the age category for first race by about 10 days.
Amazing. Good battle also here for 6th place between Dylan McVern, Connor Zilic, and this man, Goikerberg, in Misha Goikerberg in 8th position, but he's a long way off that battle between Zilic and McVern, which is glued together for 6th place. But we're also now watching this battle at the front because it's starting to heat up. Mosak still leads, but that pressure from Matos has given the hurry up to Austin Green, and the gap has closed now between the top 3, and there's less than, well, it's just over half a second between 1st and 2nd place. So it was 1.3 seconds at one point, but now you see it for yourself. Austin Green, that's the gap physically between the pair of them, a lot closer than before. Be interested to stay on board with it. What was he doing there? Oh, he's messing about with his drinks bottle. That could be annoying.
Yeah, I'm sometimes if the drink bottle gets too warm or a button sticks on, it actually just starts to put water all over you. So it looks like he was trying to tear that hose out of there in a real hurry, wasn't he?
You know, as we watch the steering wheel work underneath him and how much the bumps affect the movement of the car, I go back to what Nathan Hearn was saying, is that he likes Sebring because you can almost use the grip and the bumps to find extra grip, and each and every lap is different.
Well, you get over the bumps, especially when you're getting down towards the apex and power out, and you end up having the car land, and you got to make sure it lands and then slides, and you still have enough racetrack to use. So that's the key thing around this race course.
Best lap of 2:07.93 from Green. Last lap of 2:08.7. So the pace has gone down just a little bit, but as you say, they've concertina together a little bit more. Full throttle at the back end of the circuit here. And you can see 162, we reckon, top speed coming into the final corner here. But just getting 148 just there before 7.
And we talked about brakes overheating. That's the speed on those 3 straights. Turn 1, turn 7 that we just went through, and then turn 17. That's what the drivers have to have in the back of their mind towards those last 10 or 15 laps of this race.
You know, listening to the guys that do the 12 hours, and of course they're doing 12 hours, but Sebring, they always said there's nowhere really you can relax. There's no really long straight like at Le Mans or other long circuits like Coda, where you've got just at least, 10 seconds to take a deep breath. Here, you're physically fighting all the way.
Yeah, and like you said, all of it is bumpy, and I've raced here in the 12 hours. It's abusive. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But the car over there, I mean, they change the tires. Sometimes they change the brakes. I mean, there's something that you look at, and those cars are out there for that length of time, but they're made to go ahead and do that. And this course here, I'm going to hasten to say, it's probably the bumpiest course that we're on in this tour.
Well, that's Nathan Hearn back out there again in that number 20. And obviously he's dropped right back after that incident with Scott Borchetta when they came together, both coming into the pits. And obviously he's had to work it again. Scott Borchetta currently in 37th position, Nathan Hearn in 33rd as we look at them. On board with Hearn. No problems for the car itself by the looks of things. So whatever he came in to check, it doesn't look as though it's slowing him down. And he's still circulating at a good pace, is Nathan Hearn. But this is all good experience, and he'll put it down to that. I don't think the stewards will have much to say. It was a racing incident, would you say, or not?
Well, they'll go back and they'll look at it, and there might be penalties after the fact. But, it's interesting. Speaking to him last night, obviously, he knows Scott McLaughlin. And, because they're all down in that area, they race against each other, whether in Australia, New Zealand. And so he's been in touch with Scott, but drives now for Team Penske, the IndyCar, and he's probably going to wander up to St. Pete's next week and take in the IndyCar race.
And what a place to do it. It's like we've got so many guys from New Zealand and Australia now currently in Indy, both in Indy next and in IndyCar. It's great, so I'm sure he will. It's almost like going a second home, like going to the Gold Coast. Now, flapping bodywork for the 49 here. That's Patrick Oot. Driven Racing Oil, number 49, and I would have said that the stewards will, I don't know, will they bring him in for that?
Well, they're going to look at it. If a piece comes off and ends up on the race circuit, then it will obviously call a local yellow or possibly a full course yellow. So they'll look at it, and a lot of times, sometimes the part comes off, Jody, and end up in the grass. So you just continue on.
See the lake in the rear view there of this wonderful shot, and you see the airport just in the background of the circuit itself as we go back on board with Rafa, still in 3rd place, 0.7 off Green, and Green 0.8. So Mosak has reacted well. And we've got a caution, our first one. So now this does change the complex, and I'm going to put your helmet back on here, Scott. We've got full course safety car. What does that mean to you as a driver? Let's put you in Rafa, the former champion's mind, and say, how do you go about dealing with the yellow car, and what do you think about in terms of the restart? Well, now, we're at a point in the race where it's not the final sprint, but it's an important time in the race.
Well, it is, and you know, for the guys that have actually fallen back, and there's the Honda safety car just about ready to pull out. The key thing underneath the yellow, you get a chance to cool yourself down, cool the tires down, cool the brakes down. So then you're going back to a restart. As a driver, you want to make sure you get a great restart and make sure there's no contact with the car. You don't end up having an issue here with the bodywork, as we've seen some of the cars here. We don't know what this yellow's for quite yet.
I do, yes.
You do?
I just found out it was Patrick Utes. It did fly off on the main
straight. It did fly off, ended on the track.
Little panel, and
okay.
So they'd gone out to get it, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So, which we thought would probably happen. And so in this scenario now, you know, guys like Nathan Hearn that were very quick and the field got away from him a little bit. Everybody packs up now, and now it's almost like a start of a new race, except you end up having a situation. We see Austin Green down there on your left-hand side.
Finally fixing that water thing. He's got time to do it now, look. So he's trying desperately to fix it back up. And so where does that go, Scott? It just goes underneath the helmet?
It usually goes in through the front of the helmet. There's a hole there, and it sits right in front of your mouth. You push a button on the steering wheel, and the water ends up coming in. It looks like it fell out of the front of his helmet by the looks of what he's doing right now. It looks like he's trying to actually put it in underneath. And then at that point in time, you just put it in underneath and end up having it in your mouth and holding it in your teeth, as weird as that may sound.
I know. But nothing more annoying than something distracting you when you're racing.
Well, you know, it's one of those things that you end up learning a lot about what's happening inside the car, and you got to sort of put it in a different department, just go on and drive and do your job.
I guess the man who is probably ruining the whole idea of a caution right now is Conor Mosak. He had done a good job. He'd taken the lead to 1.3 seconds at one point. It dropped down to about 0.7, and he got it back up to just over a second before that caution came out. So bad luck for Conor Mosak, but even though he's only 24 and still one of our young guns, I think he's mature enough to sort of shake that off and not worry about it. He's going to be more worried about the restart and getting it right. On board with Nathan Hearn here.
So he's found himself one lap down after having to come in, and we believe, although we didn't see it, we thought he was changing the left front tire from that contact with Scott Borchetta. We know that Scott ended up having to change the right rear from the contact.
Yeah, well, like I said, it doesn't look as though it's affected Hearn too much, although he did come in. So Q3 sponsored Nathan Hearn of Australia. We'll be seeing a lot of him this year. And so TA2 fans in Australia, if you're tuning in, you are welcome. We have another race in just 2 weeks' time at NOLA. And if you don't know what that is, it stands for New Orleans, of course, in Louisiana. And looking forward to going to that. You've done some testing there. Good track?
Great racetrack, and we're there with our F4 and our FR cars. It's a flat racetrack, much like Sebring here. And, you know, before there, they also have an opportunity to get to Road Atlanta. You know, it's very interesting. I think Road Atlanta is just shortly after NOLA. The interesting thing is, a driver, you have to be very diverse today, Johnny, to be able to win a championship. You got racetracks like that, which is all about, you know, the bumps and everything that we have here. NOLA, it's a long racetrack, it's very flat. You get to tracks like Road Atlanta, up and over the hills. Car balance is very important. So a very diverse driver if you're going to have a shot at winning races and winning the championship here.
So we're under caution. Scott Goodyear, Jonathan Green bringing you the action from the first round of the Trans Am TA2 Series 4 2023, presented by Pirelli. We are, of course, a new title sponsor this year in Big Machine. Spike Coolers is our title sponsor, and unfortunately Scott Borchetta, who is of course the team leader of that company, coming in and having to do a change of tires, but back out there, and he'll be back in action, of course, again in SVRA. More historic action coming your way. We've also got TA action tomorrow as the Unlimited Power boys go, and it's probably one of the biggest field we've had in TA for a long time too. 44 cars in all. Andretti, who just went through shot there, will be in action in that one as well as this one.
You know, we saw the King Richard Petty earlier on and giving the command to start your engines, and his grandson Thad Moffitt here. You know, I think about the pressure, and we talked about it just a little bit earlier, that all these drivers that have a famous last name and a famous family member, and they come in to get involved in motor racing. It was interesting because in all the years of driving Indy cars and driving against Michael Andretti, he always said that having Mario as his father didn't put more pressure on him to drive an Indy car. And then Michael retired. And then he started talking about, you know, the pressure of driving and racing and things like that. And he actually did admit that having Mario as his father was putting a lot of pressure on him. And that question really was interesting because you think about Marco Andretti. Not only do you have Michael, and then you also have Mario. Here's a scenario where there's so much pressure to put on the drivers because of the famous last name or famous family member. And I got to believe that Thad is feeling that just a little bit here, and also driving a pretty famous car number, 43.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, he's grown up in where you'd expect him to grow up, which is on the dirt, in ARCA, places that you'd expect him on the way to NASCAR. But he's done a smart move, and a lot of kids are doing that now, which is to come here and sort of, you know, I don't know, get his, you know, cut his teeth, if you will, for racing away from the NASCAR limelight.
Right.
So Richard Petty will always, I mean, you know, if he showed up at NASCAR tomorrow with that 43 and the paint scheme and all the rest of it, that's great, but the pressure would be immense. So I think he's doing a smart move here. It's great to have Richard along board, and like I said, it's a bold move for Petty to actually put that, you know, out there.
Yeah, and very, very cool.
Let's head down to Ben. He's got Jody Mesama.
Well, here I am at the grid with Jody Meesemer with Three Dimensional Services Group. The talent we're seeing with Austin Green, unbelievable. What's he saying on the radio?
Car's staying pretty neutral, just trying to keep the nose on it, keep the brakes under it, save as much tire as we can. Waiting for the end, hopefully Connor can make a mistake and we can get a good run on him. He's pretty happy with the car right now.
Does he seem pretty calm on the radio?
Yeah, he's pretty calm, real good kid to work with. Been a pleasure weekend.
I love it, and I love this young talent coming through TA2 here. Three Dimensional Services Group. Jody, thanks a lot. Gentlemen, back up to you.
So, yes, I think they're pretty impressed with him. I'm impressed with him, that's for sure. And I think Doug Peterson, who's made the move to put him in the car, will be pleased with the ground he's made. I just hope he makes it now cleanly to the end. He doesn't get in a scrap with Rafa. And like his engineer said there, they hope they get the restart and he can have a go at Connor Mosa. I think that's actually what Rafa would probably prefer is, hey, you guys get in the battle, I'll stick behind and I'll wait for the end.
And like we talked about, that's the youth and the experience coming in too. And, you know, Rafa was pretty relaxed, even though he has a new car. And obviously a different situation here because you don't know much about it, only after 2 days of testing. But it's a long season, but you want to win every race that you're in.
You know, you mentioned Thad Moffitt and the pressure he's under, obviously, with a name like Richard Petty, and more importantly, driving that number 43. Don't forget, this man, well, not this man, Austin Green, who we were looking at a moment ago, is the son of former NASCAR and Xfinity Series champion David Green. So he, too, is not so much under pressure. I talked to him about it. He came to racing late. He didn't think he was going to be at this level, didn't really expect to be running in Trans Am. It wasn't sort of like he grew up going, I've got to be like my dad, but it's just sort of gradually evolved that way, and he does have, you know, certainly to NASCAR folks, a very famous father. So Austin will be having his own pressure out there.
You know, there's a lot of debate out there right now whether you put the drivers in there at young ages like 14 or 15 like we're seeing in Trans Am, where I'm actually even seeing that right now in our F4 series, or if you make them wait just a little bit. But I mean, there's such a push by, I think, just the industry to get people in there, get them experience, and there's probably a push by really parents to make sure that they don't lose the opportunity, if you will. Yeah, it's very interesting because I do see a great maturity difference from a 14 or 15-year-old coming into our series in F4 than a 19-year-old. So the 19-year-old doesn't make the mistakes. He's listening better, and we've all had kids. I mean, you've been through it, you understand it. And but this is what we have right now. But I will tell you, I'm very impressed with the age, the 14-year-olds that we have here. We have 5 new drivers into this series alone here this weekend that we talked about, and the first time into a TA race for them. And we talked about Caleb Bacon and Thad Moffitt and Ben Mayer and Taylor Gray. I mean, it's just interesting to see how that works.
We've been talking about Scott Lagasse for the last few moments. Let's go down to him now. He's with Ben.
Junior down here in pit lane. It's a little bit loud, but Scott, Connor Mosak just showing his style and presence like never before. Unbelievable. What's he saying on the radio?
We're pretty proud of him. He's come a long way in a couple years. He worked hard, and can't wait to see what he does at the next level. He's super fast. We're gonna miss him, but as a group, we're all proud of where he's headed now, and want him back every chance we get. So really proud of this group of guys and girls. M1 SLR group worked hard through the winter, and Peterson, Borchetta, our group got a great line of communication going right now, so it's a lot of fun.
And is he saying anything on the radio, or are you just kind of heads down?
He's typical race. He hit oil one time, and but mostly he's pretty happy right now. He's very mentally strong. He's good at keeping his head down, and things don't rattle him very well. So like I said, I'm excited to see what he does in the future.
Great. Scott Lagasse Jr. I'm watching Annunziata get out of the car, and it looks like he's got a little bit of a heat problem there. And Scott Goodyear, before we go away, Scott Lagasse Jr. does such a great job with driver development. Can you explain to the audience what they mean by driver development to go to the next series? I'm going to send it back up to you, gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Ben. And the most important thing is just guidance and making sure and let them understand the expectations. You can see the heat there right now. We talked about how hot it is. I'm going to say, honestly, Johnny, in that situation, the cool suit probably failed inside the car.
That's what I'm thinking. With the look on his face, he had the cool suit on, but it didn't look like it was working. We're going to restart this time. And Annunziata, the young 16-year-old, out of the car from the Ford Mustang from Nitro Motorsports, but his teammate is very much in the hunt for the podium. Brent Cruz in 4th position at the moment, behind Rafa Matos. This restart starts so important. How does Mosak control this and get it right?
And this is one of these scenarios where you're thinking, I'm going to do it, this is my plan, but when the green flag falls and it doesn't come out as normal, when you talked about actually coaching what Ben was just talking about a second ago, and you're trying to tell these drivers what to do, everybody in the pit lane right now is on the phone to the drivers inside the car and telling them, okay, cautious, get through turn 1, we got to make sure we make it to the end. And that's what these guys are all talking about. This is what you're trying to explain to these young drivers. They're no longer in go-karts or the dirt cars, the midget cars, or whatever they came from. These are big, high horsepower, heavy cars.
So we are getting ready for the restart of this race. Looks like Dylan Archer may also be out of proceedings here. We'll get back to that in a moment. We're getting ready for this restart. Rafa Matos wants to get it right. And we're on board with him. He's got Austin Green, his teammate, in front of him. The young 21-year-old coming into the three-dimensional services group team for the first time for a full season. And here he is. And he wants to get past, as you heard from his engineer, Connor Mosak. It would be a really good scalp. He's finally sorted out his water bottle because he was messing with that. It came out of its position underneath his helmet, and during this caution he's been able to zip it back up and get it back in there.
Now, as a driver right now, you want to lag back just a little bit to get a good run for when it goes green. But David Hoots, the race director, in the meeting this morning told these guys, I don't want you guys lagging back and putting a big gap in there. I want you guys all to be nose to tail, clean restart, and make sure you're not lagging back. Otherwise, we're going to penalize you.
All right, well, you can see the safety car lights are off, so Connor Mosak will allow. Now he has to keep the constant speed, and now he has to control this race, and he will decide when he wants to accelerate. He comes past our commentary position right now, and away he goes! Connor Mosak with the roar of those muscle cars. Goikberg sneaks out just behind McAvern. Good start from Green and a good start from Matos. Good start from Cruz as well on the inside. Nice clean restart then. And we go on board with Austin Green in second place. Oh, and a big loss there! Connor Mosak blows it at 3 goes wide under braking, and Scott Goodyear, I'll turn to your wisdom on that one, but that looked like a very easy overtake for Austin Green.
Well, you know, in that scenario right there, just driving in a little bit too hot. We talked about the temperatures here. Tires do cool down during that yellow scenario, so in that case, the tires might not have been exactly at the heat that he wanted to, or maybe overdriving it, and your mind thought, honestly, Johnny, is I need to get through this turn and get going because I'm going to do a long straight down to turn 7. I don't want the guy behind me to draft me, so he's trying to get a good run through that turn, and he paid the price for it.
A rare mistake then as Austin Green leads for the first time in Trans Am in his career, and Rafa Matos says, no you don't, son, I want by, and I want by now. And I think that's obviously the plan now that Conor Mosak is going to have to recover. Cruz has got the hurry up too, he's up to 3rd, so we've got a hell of a race on now. 21-year-old, a 14-year-old, and the mighty 2-time champion that is Rafa Matos, all going at it. And I'm just going to see where Conor Mosak has slotted back into position here after that mistake. Great opportunity for Austin Green though, and Rafa Matos, as you saw, coming right beside him at 7 as they now come through 17 and down that long back straight. And if Matos is going to pass, he's going to have to do it in the next lap or so.
So seeing a note that the 10 of Connor Alex ended up getting a penalty for pulling out of line on the restart. So we'll see if that's going to...
Who did that?
If he has to, number 10 with Connor Zelic.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Misha, I think.
So we'll see if he has to do a drive-through on the pit lane.
So out of sunset they come. The leader, Austin Green, for the first time, and he's actually done a very good job of maintaining that lead. The gap, half a second to Rafa Matos. Cruz all over the back of Rafa Matos. And then comes Conor Mosak, who's recovered well to 4th position. So he didn't lose too much time. He's still very much in the hunt, and there's plenty of time with 21 of the 27 gone. So a lucky mistake for Mosak.
And you said plenty of time. There is plenty of time. Don't overdrive the car. Don't take the tires off the car. Just be smooth. You know you had the speed, and now it's going to be different trying to pass a car than lead. But we'll see what kind of car he has underneath him and how he goes about it.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see just how Matos plays this as in comes another car. That's car number 60. That's William Solowich, the young gun.
Some damage there on the front, so obviously making contact with somebody.
What a 5 drivers from Mooresville, North Carolina. They know where to grow up. NASCAR country. Oh, so Matos making decisions now in his head. Does he make the move? Well, he just answered one.
Well,
yes,
there we
nicely
go.
Done.
And we've seen his car is better under braking, so now can he actually be able to stretch a lead and put the power down, because we've seen him struggle on getting out of the turn and putting the power down.
That was nice work though, wasn't it? I mean, he really did. You know, I mean, up the inside, made the move, clean, on his teammate.
Yeah.
You know, really beautifully done.
And as we teach our young drivers, present yourself, make sure you got a good pass, make it non-confrontational. And as teammates at this point in time, you're not going to turn around and try to force the issue.
Be interested to see how Austin reacts now to that overtake. Mosak, by the way, in that last shot, all over the back of Cruz. So there's going to be a good battle for both the win and for the podium. And I know Cruz will fight hard. Mosak will be feeling really miffed about making what was, I would have said, a cold tire mistake.
Well, if he doesn't end up on the podium, then you can take that with you when you get into the rental car to drive home tonight. I can tell you how that works. It's no
Especially
fun.
after your team management's been talking about and effusing about you being so brilliant under pressure. Oh well, that's life. That's motor racing, folks. Through the field they come, and we're looking at the number 20 at the moment. Let's have a look at what happened here. And this is Conor Mosak making a move. Oh, that was the overtake by Rafa.
That was the overtake, yep.
Yeah, that was just classic. And you can see also behind them, Mosak almost got past Brent Cruz in exactly the same way.
Well,
but as it stands, go ahead.
Yeah, the timing is perfect because you're not going to overheat your brakes because they're already cool from going through the caution lap. So you don't have to worry about making a move like that and then overheating your brakes. Smart move by Rafa for sure.
22 to 27, 100-mile sprint, as we call it in Trans Am. The 2023 season underway. We had history last year in one of the closest championships ever in motorsport when it went down to a countback between Merrill and Matos. Merrill, though, losing out today. Rarely, he looked as though he had some sort of rear-end problems almost by the 6th lap, having run right at the sharp end. He's now down in 9th, so he's going to pick up good points. Remember, with this new point system, I guess you're never really out of it, and that was the point of doing it. Mosak is past the youngster, Brent Cruz, so Mosak back up to 3rd, but I think these two will go at it in the last few laps, and sure enough, anything you can do, I'll try to do better.
Yeah, well, did you see the car? We talked about that on the inside, going over the bumps and sort of lurched forward just a little bit, and lucky they didn't end up making a collision. I'll
tell you what, though, that's playing into Doug Peterson's team because the pair of them now at the front, as these two fight for 3rd, it's just going to help Austin Green and Rafa Matos concentrate on what they're doing, which is winning this race. And what a way to start his season, 1st and 2nd. Especially with Austin Green doing the backup position, if you will. I'm sure it'll be a happier team that sees Rafa leading the championship after the 1st round. Rafa struggled last year. It took a long time to get wins. He only got 2 overall. He was consistent, he always is. But he just struggled a little bit last year. He never was really happy 100% with either the chassis, the engine, whatever it might be. Just wasn't Matos championship winning Matos style-wise, and I think it was not a miracle. Oh, big off here.
That's the 41.
That's Adam Andretti in the dust. For the grass tracking by Adam. What's he doing off? That's a last turn. He's just missed his braking point at the last corner there, or just locked up. So shame for Adam, but he was running in 13th position at the time. Or the brake pedal starts to get long, as we call it, because you start to overheat the brakes and you go to get the pedal. So it'll be interesting to see if he ended up coming into pit lane or if he ended up staying on track. Tell you what, impressive. Hearn up to 14th again. He's done it again. He's come all the way back after that safety car and made it more places up. He's ahead of the likes of Prochuk and Skeen, very experienced drivers. Well done to him. Andretti dropping down to 22nd after that incident. And a little further down, Chris Wood down to 30th. Buschetta still way down in 31st. Real shame for him. We're going to get full course caution, I bet you, here very shortly with the car sitting there. As high speed as we are. There we go. Yeah. So we're under caution again, and this could lead to a really interesting finish to this race for the simple reason that with the amount of laps we've got and the length of the caution itself, we could just get a quick couple of lap sprints, which always creates a grandstand finish, doesn't it? Yeah, well, we got about 5 laps left to go. I think we're on 22, if I'm not mistaken, or 27. So they'll have to get this yellow caution period turned around very quickly. And if it's a 1-lap shootout, stand back. I know. Well, like you mentioned, David Hoots, our race director, he's 30 years young in NASCAR, but he's had a lot of experience of running professional races, and you were at the driver's meeting, I wasn't, but I've heard him speak before, and he's all about finishing, if he can, under racing. Yeah, and we always want to. I mean, every series in the world wants to. A driver wants to if he's going to win the event. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But the interesting thing is here, just the youth that's in this series, which is so impressive right now. They've done a wonderful job today, because I would have told you that when I came in to join you to do this in the television booth, I looked at all the drivers and the age, and I thought, boy, there's going to be a lot of carnage here today. But give them full credit, and I think it's because of where they came from and all the dirt racing that they do. I never did dirt racing in my life, and I went to see the first one at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the Brian Clausen program a few years ago, and I stood there and went, wow, I don't feel like a driver from watching these guys. And they were sliding those things around, and the way that they drove those cars, I have utmost respect for those guys. They need opportunities coming everywhere. You're listening to former IndyCar star Scott Goodyear, now running our Formula 4 and FR programs in terms of helping the youth here in Tony Perella Holdings. We're going to take a short break from Sebring. We're going to be back to finish off this TA2 race. Don't go away. Welcome back to Central Florida and the iconic Sebring circuit here in the heart of Florida, home to, of course, the 12 hours, and also home to the first ever Trans Am race back in 1966. And our Grand Marshal today, Richard Petty, was in that race and took part in a Trans Am race as the current NASCAR champion. He went on to win 7 NASCAR titles, and now his grandson is racing in Thad Moffitt. We're all looking forward to seeing what he can do on his way in the footsteps of the great 43. It's been a great day so far, and we are not done by any means. Rafa Matos leads this race. No surprise to those who followed his career. The Brazilian has really stolen a march. I remember being at his first race win at Road Atlanta in 2018, and I just had the feeling then that the monkey was off the back, so to speak, because Rafa, like so many racing drivers, once he starts winning and once he gets the hang of it, there is no stopping him, and he doesn't. He's like Max Verstappen in that respect. He doesn't care who the opposition is. He just wants win after win after win. He just wants to keep notching him up, and he's still very much in that mode. He's just blasted past his teammate before that previous caution, and now Matos leads Green. Austin Green in second place. Mosak has recovered well after making a mistake at the restart. He's in third ahead of Cruz, but of course it's far from over. Slater there in fifth as well, because we've got a restart to come. We're under caution at the moment for a parked car. I think it's one of the BC cars parked up. I don't think it was Andretti, but the reason that's why we're under caution. So we are going for a sprint, and it's going to be an all-important one too. And it's car 9 and 20, so I can confirm Keith Prochak, and the 20 car is Peter Kloot, the Canadian who you know from BC Cars. So in fact, it's Peter Kloot, not Misha Koikman.
And Peter's a big-time auto guy in Canada, a legendary motor car. Remember the television show that used to go on years ago? And he comes and does a few races. He does a lot of SVRA races with a lot of vintage cars that he has.
There you go. That's Kloot's car there.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff there. That looks like there's a lot of equipment out there. So I'm hoping that we end up maybe seeing, if we see a red flag here, to stop everybody. But certainly would like to finish under green, as you mentioned. But there's certainly a lot of equipment there to be able to pick up that equipment.
Well, as you can see, it's going to be a little time before we get Mr. Kloot's car out of the way, although I wonder why they can't just push it to the side there, but never mind. We're going to take a short break from Sebring, but the action, you're not going to miss any of it. We'll take a short break. We'll be back from Central Florida after this. Welcome back to Sebring. We've missed nothing. 25 of the 27. We're hoping against hope that we will get a good sprint of at least one lap. I hope it doesn't finish under caution, but races have done that in the past, but we've also had some good one-lap dashes as well. Jonathan Green and Scott Goodyear bringing you the action. It's been a good 100-mile TA2 race to kick us off for 2023 at one of the great iconic circuits of America, and that has been one of the benchmarks of Trans Am over the years, is that we do go to Watkins Glen, COTA, Mid-Ohio, Road America, and of course Sebring. Coming up next, though, a new one for a few years anyway, NOLA. And then we head to Road Atlanta, of course, home of Petit Le Mans. And so some really great iconic circuits. And I bet if we threw you one of those, you'd enjoy this, wouldn't you?
Well, you know, and we talked a little bit earlier about how diverse you have to be able to driver that's going to win all these championships. And then the cars start to head out west and get to some of those events that are out there, too. You know, some iconic tracks like you talked about. I remember the first time I went to Road Atlanta. I'd already been racing for a couple of years, and then I got a chance to go there and do a test with the Jaguar GTP program with the Bud Light cars, and it was a track that you looked at and you felt like you were at a circuit somewhere in Europe, almost like going to Road America, which we go to with the Trans Am cars on this tour also.
Let's head down to the pit lane. We've been talking about Brent Cruz. Let's talk some more about him with Ben Sissel. He's got his engine in.
All right, I'm with Joe Claridge, crew chief for Brent Cruz, currently P4. What are you saying to him? What's he saying to you? Because we might have like a green-white checker finish here.
Yeah, well, first of all, Nick Tucker's the actual crew chief. I'm just the guy you see on pit road. But Brent's got a very fast race car. We're in a position we want to be in, but we got to obviously get the job done. But you can't screw up too much because it is the first race of the season. We are running for a championship. So we got the driver we want in it, and he's in a position we want him in. So hopefully we just finish it off and have a great day.
Perfect. And I hope that you notice the timbre in which he speaks. He seems really calm, and I know Brent Cruz is really calm in there too. So, gentlemen, I think we're about to see a great finish here at the Sebring Speed Tour.
Good work. Thank you, Ben. Yes, we are looking forward to a good season ahead, let alone a good finish to this first race. Finally enough, talking of first races, Trans Am's first race won by the mighty Jochen Rindt, who went on, of course, to become a Formula One world champion. Perhaps it was written on the wall back then that Trans Am would go on to this kind of glory. And here we are, somewhat 57 years later, and it's still as strong as ever. As you can see, the truck's still out on track, and I've got a bad feeling, and I'll turn to my race director here, this could finish under caution.
Well, the option is to turn around and just throw a red flag and have them all stop in pit lane and then send them back out. We'll see what David Hoots ends up doing. But obviously the cars that they're pulling in there must have been not able to roll. They're probably missing some wheels or something like that, because it looks like there's a flatbed there to pick one of them up.
Well, and also we don't know what's behind those flatbeds or whatever. It could be some debris or some muck down there as well that they're trying to clear up. Either way, we're under caution, and it looks as though Rafa Matos, if it continues like this, will take the first victory of the year. He wants it under racing conditions, but it doesn't matter. He'll take it, and he'll take the full 103 points. And if you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about, that's the point system this year. You get 103 points. I'm not sure who the fastest lap is, but you get a point for that and most laps led. You also get 5 points for qualifying for a 5-4-3-2-1 in pole position. So Rafa, having qualified in the top 3, will also have picked up points there. So he should, if there are no infringements to Rafa's pace and race, should pick up 103 and a couple of extra bonus points.
You know, with the amount of equipment that is on the racetrack there, Johnny, looks like pretty extensive on the cleanup, and sometimes there's some damage to the wall. So we'll wait for a direction from race control to find out if they think they might get this cleaned up in time before the 27 laps comes around. But for all these drivers right now, it's been a very impressive run. First race of the year. Some cars are new to teams, and some drivers are new to teams. I mean, and this is the time when you have all winter and you come out as a driver for the first race this season. You've tested, but you want to see where you measure up. I think these guys are going to leave here today knowing where they have a shot at the championship. There's going to be drivers and teams thinking like, boy, got a lot of work to do. But you know, for Rafa Matos, as we mentioned before, changing chassis over the winter time, over to work with that new chassis that he had, just because they wasn't happy with the car last year. So that new M1 chassis looks like it's actually proven out to be a good move for them.
You know, also good news, when I look down the list of drivers that are in that top sharp end, if you will, no surprise to see Rafa Matos there leading the way, but it's great to see so many young guns. Austin Green, 20 years old, Mosak, 24, Brent Cruz, 14, Evan Slater, late teens again, Dylan McAvoon, obviously lots of experience from IMSA and a former winner here back in 2017 and a runner-up in the championship. Then Kola Zilic, another 16-year-old in 7th position. So $20,000 going for the winner of the Young Guns, and they're all at the sharp end, and that bodes well for the season ahead.
You know, and I'm excited now just to, even though I won't be joining you in the booth because I have to take care of our Ford FR. Oh, well, I appreciate that. But now through the Speed Tour TV that we have, we can turn around, watch these races even when I'm not there. So I'm anxious to follow these guys and all these young guns as they are. And we talked about it before. It's really a rehearsal, or a finishing school, if you will, for NASCAR. Because I think I read somewhere where the 10 of the 40 drivers that were the Daytona 500 this year came through Trans Am.
Bell, Herbst, you name it. Ross Chastain, they've all done some Trans Am on their way to going on to the Daytona 500. And even Connor Zilic, who will finish, top 3 today, was at Daytona and will have a big Xfinity program this year and will be one of the title favorites. So watch out for Connor Mosak.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you too. F4 and FR, the Formula Regional single-seaters, on the road to Formula One. FIA Super License points up for grabs. I know some of the drivers who are coming over from both the United States and from far afield to come in part of that. Don't forget SVRA, big part of Tony Perella Holdings, and also a new series this year. We'll be telling you more about that as the days go on. But it's all happening at the moment for Tony and his team. But it's also happening for this man, Rafa Matos, who's going to win, I think, under caution as the clock ticks down. Rafa Matos ticks the box.
Well, the white flag is out in front of us, Johnny. We can see it outside of our broadcast booth, so we know the answer to that one.
And the lights are still on the safety car, so that means we are going to finish under caution, which is a shame. But it gives us a time to recap on some of the highlights, if you will. Mike Skeen didn't show you in the end. He made it up to 16th position. Nathan Hearn, I kept a watch on him because he's qualified 3rd, then had a ride height infringement, had to go to the back, got all the way up to the top 10, and then came together with Borchetta. He ends up 13th. Good points for him. And remember, points all the way down to 40th position, and that's Matt Perron, who had a spin earlier in the race. Likewise, Patrick Hoot 39. Dylan Archer down to 38. He'll be disappointed. The Texan with that just changed teams. But good to see Caleb Bacon coming in. First race out in Trans Am TA2. And still some others like Ty Young. Also, Jack Wood, we mentioned him, another youngster coming through, finishing 27.
Well, I know it's only the first race, but would you say that the 2023 championship almost has to go through Rafa Matos again? He's got to be the guy that everybody's going to look at and gunning for.
This is exactly the start he wanted. I'm on a neutral ground in NOLA, and I say neutral, but because we haven't been there for a while, I think that's going to be to his advantage. I obviously think that his qualifying this weekend and his race trim look good, and yes, I think I'd agree. Mosak is not a real factor in the championship. He's only doing 4 rounds, so Rafa's definitely the man to watch. But I think that Merrill had a poor day due to the car, and the qualifying was there for Merrill. He'll be a factor, but I really look to people like Cruz and Zilic to really step up these youngsters as the season progresses. And I would love to see someone like Cruz, who has already shown he is not afraid. Don't forget Tyler Casera didn't race this weekend, could be a factor down the line because he got out of a ride, but hopefully will be back in the car soon. And so there's guys like that, but yeah, you'd have to put your money on Rafa if you're a betting man at the moment.
Certainly going to be chased by all these young guns that we talk about. You know, when we were chatting with Brent Cruz, I know he's 14 and he's going to turn 15 later this, we talked about later in March.
End of March, yeah.
March 30th. And the impressive thing, though, it's almost like you're standing there talking to an 18 or 20-year-old. He's really tuned in, and boy, he's calm, and he's a thinking young man, and just very positive and very confident, which we all expect we're going to see some great things. You see all the light panel there on your right-hand side that we just saw a second ago? That's the Flagtronic boards that are now part of the Pirelli Motorsport Holding Tour and everything on Speed Tour that we're going to have. So you'll see those boards big and bright for all the drivers to see. Obviously, the flag men are still there. It's just off the right-hand side.
What's your placement in transit in the actual car?
Through the where the signals will be actually over by the driver.
I see.
So
I can see it now. Yeah.
Yeah. So there'll be a small box that they have that's over on the left-hand side. We use a system like that in our F4 and FR, but it's a small little single light. Actually, it's called the old Delphi system, and we'll put this into our new cars starting in next year. I mean, it's leading-edge technology. Everybody at Flagtronics are all here on board. And I really thank Tony Pirella for investing into the system. This is the price of a small house, Johnny. So,
yeah,
I mean,
we went in the safety car earlier this weekend, the car we're looking at in front right now, and I can see the system's tiny. It's no weight, right?
Very small. Just small for the driver to be able to see it inside the single-seater cockpits. We'll get those newer ones out next year. But, you know, not the way that Rafa wanted to maybe win this race. He wanted to go underneath the checkered flag at speed, but he leaves here, and I'm telling you, as a race car driver, you're going, the new car that I'm sitting in is going to work.
Well, it was a bit of a two-dimensional finish for the three-dimensional services group, but they'll take it as Rafa Matos will take the checkered flag here at Sebring to win the first race of 2023. Behind him is hot shoe youngster Austin Green, following in his father David's footsteps with a very accomplished run to second place, having led this race when Conor Mosak made a rare mistake, the 24-year-old, and Conor Mosak takes third position ahead of Brent Cruz. Evan Slater, we haven't talked too much about Evan, but that's a good result too for the number 6 for Franklin Road Apparel. His first run with the team, good result for him, holding off Dylan McAvern, a former winner here. 6th place for him. Connor Zilic, the youngster for Silver Hair Racing Chevrolet Camaro, in 7th position, and Misha Goikberg for BC Cars in 8th. And it was a BC Cars Peter Glut car that put us under caution at the end there. But a good start to the year, and Rafa Matos picking up where he left off, and there's going to be an almighty battle, I think, for the title this year, and it just may bring in a few other names and numbers into the action, but there's no question that it's normal service resumed by the Brazilian Rafa Matos, who wins again, having won here last year. It's back-to-back wins for Rafa Matos. By the way, the helmet, just in case we were wondering, 20 years, celebrating his 20 years of racing since 1992. And on the lid, he's got the same colours he's had for some 20 years when he started in karting, but on the lid he's got all his title accomplishments as well. So another accolade for Rafa Matos as he celebrates 20 years of racing at the sharp end.
And you could see him sort of having fun with the throttle there as we were watching him and just sort of gassing it and getting the back end, stepping out. He doesn't need to worry about the tires anymore.
No,
they're done. So now he can go off and have fun.
I'm not sure Doug Peterson would like him messing about, but it doesn't matter.